Welcome to the Lifestyle Chase. This podcast features high performers who have found a way to live their best life while balancing their health, wellness, friends, and family. Proudly hosted by me, Chris Little. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to episode 38 of the Lifestyle Chase. Here I am joined with the one and only TJ Sadler. How are you doing today?
Good stuff. Good morning. Great.
Sweet. So you're on your spring break.
Yeah, it seems long overdue. It sounds kind of weird coming from a teacher because we have lots of holidays. I just had Christmas a few months ago, and I'm a high school teacher as well, so we get an exam break in January. But
nice.
At this time of the year, we definitely start counting down the days and how many more weeks until the next little break or the next little holiday.
So when I say spring break, what are the three first words that come to mind?
Oh my God. You know what? Like initially I was going to say sleeping in, but I don't. I probably wake up, even on the weekends, I wake up the same time as usual. Maybe a little bit more like relax and stress relief, chill out and spend a little bit more time in the morning rather than rushing off. I definitely get to spend some more time with my wife and my son. And then, it's running YEG Fitness Magazine. All my holiday time typically gets eaten up doing more work with that, trying to make some new contacts and develop some new things.
Absolutely. What's your biggest struggle with being a teacher and running the magazine?
Time management.
Yeah.
I teach full time. I've taught for 22 years. So I mean, when it comes to time management and planning as a teacher, I've got that down pretty good. I don't use the same lessons over and over. I've always, trying to create new things, but I like to say I'm a good storyteller. So when I see something in the news or I pick something up from whatever, just a life experience, I have a way of rolling that into a lesson. So, I'm often able to create some fun and engaging stuff that way. But definitely time management. I know when I'm at my school, my wife Ashley, who teaches next door to me, her school day starts about an hour and a half earlier than mine. So we come in together still, and I'm at my school then an hour and a half early, so I can get some of my YEG Fitness stuff done before the official day starts, and then my planning done there. I'm not introverted, but I eat my lunch in my classroom, so if kids need help and I can do some planning and marking, then I can get it done. And I get asked often, why aren't you down in the staff room or during your prep, why aren't you in the staff room chatting? And I look at it as not that I don't like talking and working with the rest of the staff. It's just I find my home life very important. So if I can get my work done while I'm at work and not need to bring home 2 hours worth of marking or something each night, I'm kind of willing to forgive that lunchtime and my prep period like a lot of other teachers do, and go in the staff room and shoot the shit and talk about their day. I like to get my stuff done because, again, I know in the evening time, whether it's family or whether it's doing stuff with YEG Fitness, I'm going to be still working after 3:30 at night when the rest of the teachers are done for the day and heading home to do work there.
Totally makes sense. And for myself, as being like a teacher's kid, like I know what it's like having like your parent come home and they're still working on stuff. So like I can totally value if you have that opportunity to get those loose ends tied up and then free yourself up with more spare time.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
And I mean, it's not to discredit any of the other teachers that do a lot of work. And I did a lot of it when I started. Like I said, I've been teaching for 22. It's my 23rd year. So I definitely don't do as much extracurricular as I used to. I do an entrepreneur group. I used to run a Meet a Wee that's through Free the Children. I'm actually helping one kid who's interested in journalism, trying to get her website, and I'm more engaged with that kind of thing, less engaged with the coaching like I was when I first started out. And I think as for me to do YEG Fitness 20 years ago or 15 years ago, yeah, I probably wouldn't have had the time to be able to do it, just simply because I would have been so focused on just learning to be a teacher, right? It's learning the curriculum and all of that. But I think that's helped me as well. You know, my ability to time manage has helped me a lot. You know, yeah, teachers do put in 60, sometimes more hours a week. But I think a lot of it can be, you know, how you manage your time.
Yeah.
You know, rather than spending, maybe some teachers will give me shit for this, but rather than spending a half hour in the staff room, you know, yakking, and that's important for mental health and everything. But, you know, there's opportunities during the day where you can get some of your work done for sure, so you can have some home time and some family time where you're not worrying about teaching.
Absolutely. So I'm going to frame out 3 different kinds of days.
Yeah.
You're going to pick out your favorite thing about each different kind of day. So one of your days is going to be heat of the moment, probably just before a break or just during exams, like something where like tension is high.
Okay.
You're going to pick your favorite thing out of those.
My favorite thing out of that high stress, high tension
kind of a day.
You know, I think you and I have known each other for quite a while. How many years? 2 years?
3 or more, yeah.
So, I mean, most people that know me know that I'm typically pretty chilled and pretty laid back. So stress doesn't typically get to me too much. So even if it is like a high stress situation at school, high stress situation trying to get an edition of the magazine out or something, you know, I guess I don't know if it's like coping strategies. I don't really do anything special to deal with my, you know, stress levels. It's just, I think I've always kind of had that where I don't let certain things get to me. I was in a fashion show for Western Canadian Fashion Week on Friday, and one of the designer, Mike Chaloux, had me involved. And the designer, you could tell, it was his first big sort of kick at the can, and you could tell his stress level was up big time. And I reflected back then, and I was like, I remember when I did my student teaching, and I remember how there was a class where I just didn't feel prepared, and I could feel the stress starting to come up. And I was like, you know what? I've got to do this class in 20 minutes, whether I want to, whether I'm prepared well enough or not. I've got to do it in 20 minutes. You know, fuck it. What's the worst that's going to happen? And that's kind of the way I think my mentality has always been, like at least as far back as I can remember. I try to prepare for things ahead of time, but at the end of the day, you know, let the chips fall where they may. Shit's going to happen, and it might go sideways. You know, I think a lot of it's how you deal with it. So kind of that, you know, like you said, the stress or coming into a break or whatever. You know, I look at it as I always think of the positives, I guess.
Totally, that's good. So the second type of day, this is going to be when you're on holiday, but you're still in the Edmonton area. What's your favorite kind of thing about that style of day?
Just to be able to kind of kick back and enjoy your life, right? I think my wife's a department head, so she's often involved with her school, with me with teaching and then doing the magazine, trying to be active and involved with our kids. You know, our daughter moved to Toronto a year ago, and our son's in grade 7. So trying to be involved with, you know, with all their commitments. It can sort of catch up with you and can be a little overwhelming with so many things going on. So I think, you know, holidays and things like this holiday where we're spending a good chunk of it around the city, you know, getting up in the morning, and my wife and I love tennis. So every day this week we've got up in the morning and watched tennis for a couple rounds, went and had a coffee, can go, we have a gym in the basement. So luckily we have a good deal with Tydax in the city, and they outfitted our basement, and I can go down in there in the morning and have a workout before we get going. You know, just the nice little relaxing opportunities that we don't typically have during the school year, where it's sort of rush up at 6 in the morning, and boom, we got to be out the door in an hour and on our way to school. So absolutely. That's kind of the nice thing. And then even, you know, enjoying going, we definitely go out more, you know, eat out more, take in some restaurants that we haven't tried before, go do some fitness activities at places we I may have still not been able to make it into, or a new place that might have opened up. So.
Makes sense. Here's your third type of day. So this is, you're on holiday, but you're outside of the country. You're in Europe or something like that. What's your favorite part of that experience? Like, obviously the whole thing, but if you could choose one.
Adventure. I was listening to one of your other podcasts where you were talking about whether you like, the adventure type scenario, or whether you like the all-inclusive type thing. And I guess for us, it depends where we're at. If we go to Mexico, we like the all-inclusive. We like the, chill out at the beach, at the pool, meals and everything are all made for you. We usually we have a place we always go down there, but we still make a couple day trips usually into the city or into a couple of the towns. And when we do that, it's definitely more adventure. I've had food poisoning probably about 6 times while on vacation, and it's probably attributed to my eating from a food truck in, at a different area of the world where sanitation may not be and food care might not be the same as it is here in Canada. But I think that's, even bent over the toilet and stuff coming out both ends, it's still part of the adventure. When we go to Europe, I love Europe. My wife introduced me to Europe. I think it's been about 5 years, because she'd go with her school quite a bit, and we try to go back every year now. And we're both history buffs. We like art. We like culture. So it's definitely the adventure. I don't like to book a tour with a big group. Often we'll book a private tour with just somebody who takes us around for half a day just to introduce us to the places. But then after that, we're on our own. We like eating where the people are eating, where not the tourists. As tourists, it sounds kind of weird, but we like to go and immerse ourselves in the culture of the place we visit. Get some good experiences.
Totally. So if you think back, when was the day that you thought that you were going to be a teacher? Like, was this grade 7, grade 10, grade 12?
Grade 12. I had a social studies teacher. She was a little eccentric. She had diabetes, and I remember one day she came up, and she used to dress up. So she'd dress in character, and then she'd play the part of some historical figure. And I don't know if today you could get away with this. My wife has a Nazi flag, not for any weird reason, but she's a social studies teacher, and she has a lot of historical stuff, and she likes to bring those types of things in, and a bit for the shock value, but also to show the students, get students to understand the meaning behind some of these things. So my teacher came in dressed up as Hitler, had the outfit on, had the little mustache on, and got up on a chair and started just going off. And we're like, holy shit, what's going on here? And it turned out she was really, her blood sugars were way out of whack, and that's just created a bit of a sugar buzz right away, and then she dropped into a hole, and the ambulance had to come and treat her. But she had us grade papers of our peers. She gave us sort of an idea of what to look for and this and that, and grading paper. And I think 3 of them, and I wound up having the same mark that she did. And it seems like a weird thing, in hindsight, but that moment sort of triggered me that, hey, maybe I'd be interested in being a teacher. I wanted to be a doctor, pediatric cardiologist, and when I was in grade 12, we went on a job shadow. My mom's a carrier for hemophilia, so when I was a kid, I always had to go in and get tested. And same doctor I went on a job shadow with, and he asked me, how important family was and that. And I was like, well, very. I had both parents while I was growing up. My parents were really active in my life, and he's like, because this job can be pretty taxing on family life and your lifestyle. He's like, I haven't taken a vacation, make good money, but I haven't taken a vacation in over a year, because I feel constantly that need or that draw to be available for my patients. Pediatric cardiologist, and he was really super specialized. So anytime, surgery of a certain type that was his specialty, he felt he needed to be there and didn't want to pass it off. So I started thinking at that time, maybe medicine. isn't something that I'd be interested in doing, because I wanted to be more involved with my family. And business was always a big thing, but same thing, my uncle was a big executive with Burger King, and he was always on the road, so family was important to him, but he was gone for a lot of time. And I started to look at what could be important for family, and I always liked coaching, and I was always that kid, I guess, that was helping other kids in my class understand something that maybe they were having difficulty with or whatever in school. So grade 12 for sure. By the time I was about halfway through grade 12, I knew that's what I wanted to do, and applied straight to U of A.
Nice. I like that process, that journey kind of thing, just to rationalize it based on values kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think, and in hindsight too, with a lot of kids today that are in that position, you gotta love what you do, but it's also hard to know what you want to do when you're 17, 18 years old, right?
Yep.
My daughter, she's 20 now, and for me, I always knew what I wanted to do. My wife went around it. She didn't go back to university until she was 25, and she's got 2 degrees, and she's a department head. She's done off the charts, phenomenally better with her career as an educator in that path towards administration than I have, or that I have any desire to. But her daughter did a year of U of A. She hated it. She moved to Toronto, planning on going to Ryerson. She's definitely artsy and into fashion. So, that's kind of her plans, is to move in that direction. But for me, it was kind of like, our daughter asked, should I take a year off? And for me, it was like, no, you have to go to university right away, right? That's the path to your future. High school, university, get a job. And now it's so different for kids growing up today.
Totally. Like, I know that when I first graduated, I initially had a plan, and it was to go to Vancouver, and it was that same thing, that whole family and values, and just all these different things. Many things revolved around the money and the expense.
Yeah.
It was just like, I had one niece at the time, the second one happened shortly after, and I was thinking, like, this little girl is going to get older, and I won't be able to be the uncle that I could be if I lived like an hour away versus like an hour plane ride away.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about all those things, and part of it was doubting myself on a goal, but yeah, you factor it in, and it kind of plays a role. And I know that when I went to university, because I started off, I went to Grant Mac and I did general studies. That's how much I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I was just like, I dabbled in everything, and it's just totally true. The journey is very, very different.
Yeah, it is.
Students don't necessarily have to like dive right into university, and some are wired to do so and be very, very successful, and some are just wired to kind of like dibble dabble, and then some find a lot of success just through learning by doing kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's, life skills are just as important. Our daughter's had a hard year this first year in Toronto. Tough, tough, first of all, moving to Toronto where you know nobody.
Yeah.
She moved there with, she didn't have an apartment, she didn't have a job, she hadn't been accepted to school. So it's like, I'm moving. I want to be in Toronto. I can't do fashion in Edmonton, at the level that she wants to do it at, right? And I know it's been hard on us, been hard on me. I haven't seen her in a year. Skype only does so much through Skype or through whatever, FaceTime and that kind of stuff. But we were always like that with our kids. When I was growing up, I'm an only child, so my parents, my mom especially, was like, you're not moving. When I graduated from university, it was like, okay, where am I going to work? I looked down in the States, we looked in Europe, we looked at Toronto, we looked, everywhere. And she's like, you're not going to move? What about my grandchildren someday? I'm not going to see my grandchildren. So I felt that pressure and stress from my mom to stay in the city. And, in hindsight, I love Edmonton, but I probably, if I hadn't had that pressure initially, probably would have been in another city. We like big, moving somewhere smaller than Edmonton would have been a no-go.
You would have been doing like the fetal position in the corner. Get me out.
Yeah, my first job interview was in was it Hay Lakes? I think it is, just south of Edmonton.
Yeah, I've been there.
And it's, you know, like, hey, I mean, you don't, when you're offered a job somewhere, you don't whatever, bite the hand that feeds you kind of thing.
Totally.
So I would have taken it if I got it, but you know, I know between my wife and I, we would have been just counting the days to get out of there. So we've always been with our kids, like, you know what, go travel. Mom and dad are both teachers. I mean, teachers make good salaries, so we can come visit. We have holidays, lots of them throughout the year, so we'll be able to come visit. And you know, don't feel that obligation that, oh, I need to stay at home because I'm gonna disappoint my parents or whatever. It's like you have to go live your life, and you have to find your way in the world. And you know, yeah, you might struggle for the first little while, and you might live in a shitty apartment with bed bugs and you know, gunshots outside, which scares the shit out of me because I'm not there to be able to not like I can handle that, but I mean, you know what I mean, like
totally.
Get over to our house or whatever, you come stay with us or help, you know, especially, and I don't mean it to sound sexist where it's your daughter, but I mean when your daughter's away somewhere else, and as a dad you can't be there to help, you know, anyway other than throwing a few $100s in her account every once in a while. That's definitely stress. But I think it's something that, you know, for me as a dad, I needed to let her do, right? To go off and explore the world and fail. You know, there's so much talk about, and we hear it all the time, even as teachers, you know, with like participation badges and, you know, setting kids up for success. And that's important, you know, for you to feel success. But I was at a PD, or there was a speak with Chris Hadfield, a Canadian astronaut at our school this year. And he made a statement that was flooring to me, and it was success. How did it work? Success is the worst teacher, something like that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it was the idea that like you have to fail in order to get better.
Yeah.
Right. And sort of going along with the, you know, participation badges and those types of things in sport. And you know, should everybody get a pat on the back even when they don't do the best job? Right. It's important to celebrate your victories, even if you lost and you had some victories, but like you lost, right? You didn't finish first. You lost.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do to do better next time? I think that's so important for somebody to fail.
That's like the attitude that you take to failure is what is the catalyst to your progress going forward, kind of thing. And
different people are going to handle it. You're right. Different people are going to handle it differently as well, right? Some people, failure might be dealing with some mental health issues or whatever other issues, and maybe they don't have the skills. They haven't developed, whether it's their parents didn't help develop or whatever the situation might be, right? They don't have the skills to handle failure properly, right? But at the same time, you know, they need to experience failure in order to understand what success is. If all you've ever had is success, if you're a Kardashian and you've always experienced positive, you've always experienced, you know, good things in your life, you've always had things, I don't know, given to you, then it's tough when something bad happens to you for you to know how to handle it.
Totally true. So I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of student do you find you relate to the most? Like what's your student that you see eye to eye with?
I teach a lot of I teach the Science 20s and Science 30s. So if people are not familiar, we've had that in Alberta for maybe about 15 years now. Not the Bio 30 IB kids, not the Science 14-24 kids. They're sort of the in-between. They kind of like science. It's sort of a general studies type course. The curriculum isn't as in-depth, but they cover a lot more content. So kid taking one of those courses comes out of school more well-rounded with science. I've always been the teacher who dresses up in my jeans or likes to wear my jeans. And what have I got on today? Mick Jagger t-shirt on, right? So
totally.
You know, that's my style. I like Nirvana. I don't dress in a suit.
You have a hand tattoo.
I have a hand tattoo, right? So I've always been that teacher, right? And I sit in a desk with my students, or I'll sit in a chair with my students, and I'll I'll lecture and we'll have a conversation, you know, while I'm sitting there. And I think that's how you have to teach some of those guys too, right?
Yeah.
A lot of those, you know, not everybody meshes or gels with that kind of presentation where you've got the teacher up front and they're lecturing and you know, dictating and having a conversation. And hey, I'm not saying that my style meshes with every student that I get. Everybody has their own individual needs and their own individual, I don't know, learning style, right?
Yeah.
But those are definitely my kind of kids. You
It's
know,
awesome.
they might have had a hard time with school, and I love seeing it when I've had a kid in grade 10 who, you know, might have been a little bit of an asshole in grade 10, and they know it, and I know it, but I've always had that attitude of, you know, no matter how you've been in the past, you know, I might notice something in your file or whatever that another teacher commented about. You and I have a totally different relationship, and I always have that attitude of, you know, life is about choices, right? You make good choices, good things happen to you. I'm big on karma. You make poor choices, you know, you need to own those choices and own those decisions, and only you can be responsible for those choices that you make in life. Lots of bad shit might have happened to you up until this point, but you know, you see it all the time where all these, you know, these successes you see in Hollywood or successes you see in the business world came from a real shitty life, you know, no opportunities given to them, and it's because they worked hard, not because somebody else pushed them to. So that's kind of the attitude I've always had with my students, right? It's been just you know, don't fuck me over, you know, don't if I'm working with you, you know, don't stab me in the back, or as I used before, don't bite the hand that feeds you, kind of thing. Like, we're in this together.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm a teacher, so I need to get you the content and the materials so that, you know, you can get the credit in the course. But you know, let's have a little bit of fun at the same time and you know, make the most of it, I guess. Science might not be your favorite subject, but let's try and find some joy in the topics that we do go through.
Yeah. So speaking on failure, combining that with students, what's a situation where you've seen a student encounter failure and rebound from it in the most empowering way?
Yeah. You know, we typically would, you know, focus on marks and things, you know, students who've, I don't know, experienced failure in the sense where they're constantly not doing well in school, ready to give up. And then those kids, you know, something in many cases like grade 12, whether it's mom and dad giving them the ultimatum that, you know, you're out of the house in 6 months, right, because you're done high school, or they, you know, something clicks in grade 12 for them and they're like, I'm almost done high school, I need to consider what I'm doing next year. I don't want to go work in wherever, I just don't want to go have a regular day job. I need to figure something out, you know, and then it clicks. So I mean, I've had plenty of experiences with that, where it's, you know, you had a kid in grade 10 who you were like, man, this kid is going to be, you know, no offense to any, you know, of the jobs that are general labor jobs, but I mean, this kid's going to be just out there working, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you see them progress as they go through school. We've had a couple kids who've got, you know, big scholarships, where there were sports scholarships going down to the States, and that was pretty cool to see. But typically your kids who are getting sports scholarships already have that, you know, they may not have the academic skills all the time, right? But they've got those skills for resiliency and competitiveness and not giving up.
Yeah.
You know? If they're going to play on a basketball team and they're being looked at by a, you know, Big Ten school down in the States, you know, they've already got a lot of those skills there.
That makes sense. So going into something like YEG Fitness Magazine, and also I want to clarify, I've been calling it YEG Fitness. What should I call it?
I don't know.
YEG? YEG?
I call it YEG. Okay. I think I started it, the first interview, first time I was on, I think it was Global, was the first group that had us on TV ages ago, when it was just a blog. I think I called it YEG at the time.
Yeah.
And then I think, I can't remember who it was, and we were having that conversation. I was like, I don't care what it is, as long what you call it, as long as you read it.
Yeah,
right?
no, that's
so,
true.
And I think YEG is what more people are starting to go with. It doesn't sound the
has
same.
An easier flow.
It does. Flows off the tongue easier. Calgary with YYC. It's what do you do with
YEG
or Yiver in Vancouver. So YEG's got that one that's, like you said, sort of rolls off the tongue easier.
Yeah. I figured I'd ask because people ask me, and just on behalf of you, I'm just YEG Fitness. That's what we're calling it.
Yeah.
But going into a project like that, and I know it started as a blog, but what was like, if you were to wrap it all up into one all-encompassing thing, what was the toughest thing that you've encountered?
That's a good question. I mean, with me running the magazine and starting it up, a lot of it's been time management, right? Being able to find the time to do everything that's involved. Originally, like any business that starts up, it's, how do you get your name out? I started it as myself, so I didn't have partners at the time. We didn't take out a loan. We didn't have, financial backer or anything that could have helped it grow faster. But at the same time, when I first started it, that's how I wanted it to be anyways, was just to grow it organically and get people interested in what we were doing that way. And I was at a Grant McEwen thing last week doing a talk about entrepreneurship, and still had some people there who were like, oh, I've never heard of it before. That's fine. And that's kind of the cool part about it is, we're still kind of, I guess, educating, and we're still growing ourselves. We've been around for 6 years. Magazine, like in print, has been 3, but we're still not Avenue Magazine where we've flooded the market with whatever number, 25,000 or how many thousands of copies they put out all over the city.
Totally.
So that's probably been the biggest, I don't know if I'd call it a hurdle. Maybe the hurdle to growth has been, it's slow and steady wins the race, that saying. That's kind of the philosophy that we've always had, rather than exceeding our capabilities and abilities. People have asked us, when are you guys going to eventually do it every month? It's like, well, I'd love to, but trying to find content and trying to find the time to be able to do that every month, it's just not something that's super feasible right now.
Yeah, like describe to the listeners about how much time it takes for you to put together content for one issue.
And you know what? Like it's definitely got a lot easier. I know when we first started, Joel, my partner who does all the graphics, he's got a great, I don't know if you'd call it a template, but I mean, I'm not a digital guy with design, but he's got a great system now for what the look of the magazine should look like. So I'm sure with him, that very first edition that he did probably took him a lot more time, organizing everything and putting it together. I think as a business owner, and I think most business owners will say the same thing, it's important to have, a good group of people around you. So I've learned over the years to, rather than try to be a jack of all trades and do everything myself, to try to put people in situations and, offer them some training to be in that situation, and then give them sort of the creative flexibility to do their thing without a whole bunch of micromanaging.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I like writing. I do it as a teacher, editing all the time, right? Marking papers and that kind of thing. But I've learned that that's not the best use of my time. So we have an associate editor. We actually just moved to Vancouver a few months ago, so it's a little harder to get her to edit everything. But when articles come in, I can forward them off to her, and that's her expertise. What takes her 2 hours to do would take me all day, right? So. That's a big component of it. We rely on writers, and we like that, writers from the city. So I probably write 3 articles in each edition right now, and then all of the other content comes from local writers, which is the whole point of the community, right?
Yeah.
Is to let the people who are actually in that industry write about it. I can write an article about THC or maybe THC CBD oil in wellness, right? But I am no expert in that field. I don't use THC, I use CBD oil, but all I'd be able to give is a personal experience regarding that, right? So
Yeah.
same thing with, with a workout. You've written workout for us, one or two?
I think
Two,
maybe.
Okay. So I mean, again, like I could go online and research these things, and I could just pull some workout from a website, but why not showcase the people in the city who are doing these things?
And I think
right?
it engages more audience.
I agree.
Because I've seen a number of the trainers that are working with me at Evolve. They've been featured,
Yeah.
and then I've been like, oh, I read this article, and here they are.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that's when I first started it. That's I think the thing that was missing in the city. And I know like other groups like Free Fitness and Lululemon with like community engagement and building community and supporting community. I mean, they've been in the city for a while, but they hadn't really had an Instagram page where they were promoting community through their Instagram page yet. So I think it was something that was not lacking. And I mean, I don't want to take the credit or whatever for bringing a fitness community together.
But the addition to this
exactly,
community has been
right?
very beneficial.
Giving a platform to showcase what was good in the city. The one thing people have always talked about with Edmonton, and my daughter still calls it, she's like Edmonton, right? And it's been our moniker for years for this city, is just nothing to do in the city. I lived downtown when there was nothing to do in the city about 12 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And it's definitely not anymore, but it was still a matter of like, okay, well, we're in Edmonton, we're a big city, but we still have a small town mentality where talk 8 degrees of separation. I mean, Edmonton's probably like 2 degrees of separation between people. But what do you do at night? You go to a movie, or you go to a restaurant, or you go to the bar, and that was what Edmonton was all about. And really, it wasn't. It's just you didn't know that there were these other things out there that were going on. It's not like all of a sudden, in the last 5 years, people have started doing things in the city and putting on more events. They were always there. It's just you had a hard time finding out about what was happening. So I think with us, with the fitness and the wellness part, that's where we wanted to sort of move into. We didn't want to do the lifestyle stuff because there were lots of other brands doing that kind of stuff, but at least showcase, what was happening, what was sort of trending in the city that was cool, and having that YEG community, having that Edmonton local spin.
Totally makes sense. And also just getting it integrated into more of the professionals, like the higher ranking athletes and all that stuff is exciting, because then it builds.
It does. And I mean, those are cool. Those are cool opportunities. Like we've had some pretty cool people on the cover that are like big name people. I mean, probably biggest Grant Fuhr, having him on the cover fairly early on. That was cool. Jelena Mrdenovic, had Zach Cassian, had some great people on the cover. But I mean, also having just like regular, everyday people on the cover of the magazine. The one that you were on with the group, not this latest one, but the one before. It's just to show, fitness is for all, right? Fitness is about everybody. It's not just that person who's a top level athlete in their particular sport, right? It's for everybody.
And it's especially cool if you do your research on some of the people on the cover, because like a guy like Rob Clark lost a whole bunch of weight. And my almost identical twin, the other Chris there, he's lost a ton of weight as well. And that's a lot of things that people don't know about these people. It's the beauty of the community, and especially social media. You learn more about a person as, wow, there's a story to them, kind of thing.
You do. And I think like, I get asked all the time too, like with some of the whatever celeb people that we've talked to, like what's it like chatting with those people? Or I just this morning, I'm a huge tennis fan, and we're doing an article in our May edition on the rise of Canadian tennis. And great thing about social media, and I mentioned this to this girl that I'm working with at my school right now, is use social media to try to communicate and chat with people. So reached out to a few of the up and coming tennis stars, and luckily got to go see Denis Shapovalov last year when he was in town for the Davis Cup. So I just reached out to his coach on social media, and woke up this morning and messaged back to him about being able to do an interview. Did the same with the highlight of my I don't know, reaching out to people on social media was I did the same thing with Sir Paul McCartney. Reached out to him on social media just as a BS joke. There's no way I'm ever going to hear back, right? And didn't hear from Sir Paul, but I mean, I woke up one morning and then there was a message back from Sir Paul McCartney, and I looked at my wife. I was like, "Holy shit!" Right? And I was like, "This is Paul," and I opened it up, and it was his agent, and of course, his agent. He's too busy when he comes into town and whatnot. And I mean, those are cool opportunities where you're like, "Holy shit! I'm just some like guy from Edmonton, right? And I'm having these cool opportunities to interview some really big name people, or some big name people who I grew up looking up to, like Grant Fuhr.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you said, it's the guy like Rob Clark. Like he and I become great friends, and just like his story is just as good, if not more exciting than some of these celebrities that I've chatted with.
That's what I love about my podcast, because like the vision is it's not always going to be Edmonton. I'm going to reach for some people outside of Edmonton to give people a better appreciation of the people that we have right in front of us.
That's right. Yeah.
And it expands the reach in a way as well, because the general premise is you have a guest and they're like, all right, I was on a podcast, and then they might tell their mom and dad and maybe their dog, and like it expands the reach. Like you interview somebody from Germany, like Ryan Jones is in Germany. He told a lot of his fan base, and then all of a sudden I had a spike of listens from Germany.
Oh, cool.
Like it's neat how that works.
It is.
And in a way it elevates Edmontonians.
Yeah, and I mean with yours, with the lifestyle chase, it's you're featuring Edmontonians for the most part.
Yeah.
Right? Or at least have a connection to Edmonton. That in some cases can be restrictive. I mean, with YEG Fitness, why would somebody from Tel Aviv want to check out our magazine? I mean, there's content in there that's applicable everywhere.
Yeah.
But for featuring somebody who's local to Edmonton as our YEG Fit model that month, then why would somebody be interested in that from another area in the city? So I know with YEG Fitness, we kind of embrace that of just focusing on the community. People have asked us, we're interested in doing YYC Fitness and YVR Fitness. And I did recently, just with website and social media, start up in YYC. But I find Edmonton, the community in Edmonton is way more supportive of our community than what I've seen in other communities. And that's not to diss Calgary or Vancouver or the other Canadian hubs. I just think maybe it's because it's so damn cold here, or what it is, because we are fairly isolated. Yeah, right. We're 3 hours away from another big city. We're an hour-ish plane ride away. We're not a hub. We're getting better, but we are supporters of our own here.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the other one? Even City TV. I don't even know if that's still on. I think it is.
It comes and goes,
right? But I mean, only in Edmonton, right? Could a channel like City TV supporting local and just everything that's happening in the city be something that people tune into, fairly regularly, or even companies like Poppy Barley, right? A homegrown city or a homegrown company. And they've done great things elsewhere, but they still have, such a supportive client base right here in the city.
There's a ton of that business in Edmonton, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think the way I see it is perhaps there was just something that kind of brought it forth, and it kind of gives you that idea that, it might not be here now, but it doesn't mean it can't be there in the future kind of thing.
Yeah.
You just somebody has to start it. You just need to be a good leader and just like stick it through, play the long game, do like slow and steady kind of thing.
And I think guys like Stephen Mandel and Don Iveson, no matter your political beliefs or who you support, I think both of those guys have done a really good job for promoting Edmonton to the world, right? And showcasing here's what it means to be a connected city, Right?
Totally.
Having that support, whether it's, support from government or just support from other community, members in the community who are willing to work together. And that took a long time too, I think. And when we first started the magazine, I remember I would have that conversation with some studio owners where it was like, why would I want to work with that other studio, right? They're competition. Why would I want to do a project where it's them and us and this company and we're collaborating and doing something together? I was like, well, collaboration and competition can breed good business, right? You come up with new ideas and you can do some great things together by supporting each other instead of constantly, tearing each other down or chatting or talking about each other behind each other's backs. You do something supportive to help grow the fitness community in the city.
Totally. And even myself, like, I'm a trainer who could always use more clients, and yet I've featured several trainers on my own podcast. And it's the way I see it is I'm honing my craft through this podcast. I'm building other people up. It's just creating something out of nothing, and if anything, that's going to be beneficial in the long term. Like, I might be giving exposure to other people's things that are very successful and well sought after. But it's still going to benefit me. It is that whole community over competition idea. Like, no two people are the same. Everybody's always going to have those people that suit them best. So there's no sense in worrying about what you're going to lose when you could just be losing something by not taking that measure, that step to gain growth from people around us.
And I think the people who are all about competition and are not willing to collaborate and do work together, I think by and large those are the people who tend to disappear into the night and aren't in this long term.
Doesn't work out.
It doesn't. And I mean, there's a I guess a fine line between you sending all your business to somebody else, when that's how you pay your mortgage, right? But at the same time, by you promoting other trainers, you're promoting fitness, you're promoting wellness, which gets more people talking about it, and that gets more people active.
And most of the people that I have aligned with have truly helped me as much or more than I've helped them. And that's the beautiful thing about this stuff. You find people that are as invested in you as you are in them, and it works out. They're willing to mentor you on your weaknesses, and you can leverage them with your strengths.
That's right. And there will always be those people that are the cancers, and all they want to do is take and not interested in giving anything back, and that's
life
the
lessons.
World, right? you learn quickly, who those people are.
Totally.
And continue to watch them, and they'll eventually peter out, and you just keep sticking to your guns and doing what you do best.
Totally. We're going to segue into the family thing. So I want to know, what are your 5 favorite qualities of your mom and dad?
Oh boy. My dad is extremely hardworking, and I think that's probably where I got my sense of work. My dad was not educated. I don't think he graduated. I know he started grade 10, but I don't think he finished grade 10. He worked for the city as a meter reader for the rest of his life, and he worked as a custodian in a school. So during the daytime he worked for the city, and then came home, and from 5 until 10, pretty well 5 until 9, 4 or 5 nights a week he worked as a custodian. So my mom worked, but I mean, both my parents were not university. My mom was in nursing school when I was born, and then quit nursing school to take care of me for the first bit, and then didn't go back to nursing school until I was in high school. But my dad, typical man, breadwinner, 1970s, did the 2 jobs, so that I could have the stuff that I wanted. And I mean, I didn't grow up having stuff, but if I wanted to play hockey, I played hockey because my dad worked hard. If we wanted to go to whatever, Saskatchewan, because we didn't vacation much, but Dad worked hard to be able to do, the fun stuff, I guess. So that's for sure with me would be my number one trait that I got from them too. What else? My mom's really caring. my mom is a bit of, a little passive aggressive with the way she does some of the stuff, but she definitely would give you the shirt off of her back. So I think that's one of the big attributes or big traits that I saw from them. What else? My dad is the most laid back, chill guy in the world. So I think, again, that's something that I probably got from him. My wife my wife says that I'm dense a lot. I think I get a little bit of that from my dad, not because I'm dense on purpose, but just because I just don't let a lot of things get to me. It doesn't mean that I don't care or I'm not like engaged in what's happening. It's just, that's from my upbringing probably, right? What else? That's 3, right? You said 5? Oh
yeah.
Boy. What else would I say? My mom was really nurturing. Growing up, she was always there to take care of me at home. I was an only child, so I definitely had only child syndrome, where I had the attention of my parents and had the attention of my mom specifically. My wife still, when she listens to this, she'll laugh about this, as the sun did not set on. If any of you guys know me, my name is Toby Joe. I've gone by TJ since grade 1, but Ashley always bugs me. She's like, the sun does not set on Toby Joe, because I got the attention of my mom constantly growing up. So I would definitely, yes, Ashley, I would say I'm a bit of a mama's boy growing up, for sure. Let's see. I think maybe a little bit of the stubbornness too. I know I got my mom's stubbornness with a lot of things, and that means I get set in my ways a lot. But it also made, as a good thing, it makes me committed to things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've my first year doing YEG Fitness, it was not about money at all when I first started YEG Fitness, because you blog and you get nobody checking out your website, so you're just
throwing info into a black hole,
and nobody cares.
Yeah.
Who's this stuff? This guy, who cares, right? And then you start getting your first 50 people checked out my website today. Holy crap, what did I do? And that's exciting, and that encourages you to write some more, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have that perseverance to keep sort of pushing on. And then, as time went on, probably after the first year, and readership was getting up to about 1,000, little under 1,000 people a day by, I guess, end of the second year, about 1,000 people a day. And then I was, starting to have people approach me and, hey, we'd like to do a collaboration, blah, blah, blah. Or they'd ask me, how much is advertising on the website? I was like, advertising? I didn't even think that was something that we would do. Maybe I'd get a pair of shoes or something from New Balance or whatever, right? That was a big deal. But I think every year I've kind of had this, okay, if it hasn't got to this level by this point, then this is what I'm going to do. And after that second year, it was like, okay, if I haven't been able to make this much money, right? And it became a little bit, because it was taking up a lot of my time, and I was doing it for the enjoyment. But at the same time, my wife was even saying, she's like, you could be doing night school and working less, and we could be going on a holiday or something. So I did get to a point where it was like, okay, if I wasn't making this much money by this time, then maybe I'll scrap it. And then got to that point, and then if we haven't had collaboration and this and that happening, so kind of set goals throughout, less focused on just simply money. Print magazine is expensive, so obviously you have to pay the bills, but that's been something that perseverance and things that I got from my parents has paid off in my life, for sure.
Makes sense. So with all these skills that you are attributes that you have probably kind of attained from your parents, if you could give a piece of advice to each of your kids, what would each piece of advice be? And they're living different lives right now.
Yeah.
So it's going to be different advice altogether.
Yeah. My daughter's really starting to get it. Is that stick to itness. We had the conversation a couple weeks ago. She was in Toronto, and she was staying with a friend, and her and the friend just before Christmas got into a fight, and she was staying in their apartment So she got kicked out of the apartment just before Christmas. And she phoned and she was like, Dad, I don't know where I'm going to stay. Like, I don't have a house. She's like, I'm on the street right now. It's like, no, you're not. Well, we're getting you, we're going to get you a hotel. We'll just, get you a hotel through Christmas and we'll get it sorted out after. She's like, nope, I'm going to go stay at, I can't remember the name of the place, but it was like a women's shelter, but not like, we have the men's shelter, Herb Jameson downtown. And as soon as she said shelter, immediately I'm like, Herb Jameson's. And I'm like, no, you're not staying there. We're booking you a hotel. You can figure it out after the break. And she's like, nope, I'm going to do it. And she gave me the name of the website and I looked it up because that's the way I am, right? And I was ready to book her a hotel on Airbnb. And she's like, this is something that I have to do for myself. And she's like, it'll be an experience that, you'll never be able to say in the future, you didn't experience life. And man, the hardest thing it was as a dad was to say, okay, and just let her go do it.
Yeah.
And I think that was definitely a changing point, I think, for her. And I mean, it's only been 4 months since that happened, 3.5, 4 months. But that was that stick to itness. She could have said, Dad, I'm coming home. Can I don't have any money right now to come home, but can you book me a plane ticket? And I would, yeah, absolutely, come home. We'll have your bed set up, right? And she was like, no, I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna figure my shit out. I'm gonna get on my feet. She still, she was like, this year's been shit. When are things gonna get better? And I was like, you gotta set some goals here. First goal, you get your apartment. So she's got her apartment now. Second goal, planning for school again for next year, right? Third goal, put $100 a month away. Just before you even touch anything, you put $100 a month into a little account in case something like this happens again. So she's still she's only 20, so she's still got that, young kid sort of mentality still of, I made this much money so that I could just blow it all on the weekend, right? But that stick-to-itiveness is important, I think. And that's something that she's still working on, but for... Man,
even just that little story alone, I'm like, that felt pretty good. Just hearing that story that she is getting it.
At 20, I wouldn't have had the balls. I wouldn't have. I would have been calling home, and my mom would have sent me airfare to get back home. I don't know if I would have had the balls at 20 to go to Toronto like she did. So I mean, she's already way ahead of where I am, in that sense of personal growth, right? For my son, he's 12, so he's still young, and I think he has a bit of that sense of adventure. He likes to travel with us. He doesn't have any plans of ever leaving Edmonton. He wants to be a police officer, and that's his goals in life, is to be a police officer, which is great. I think putting himself out there a little bit more. He's still that typical 12-year-old kid who spends far too much time on his cell phone watching other people play video games. I've never got that.
No, me either.
Go on YouTube and watch somebody play video games for 2 or 3 hours. I played video games as a kid, but I was outside all the time. I was only allowed to spend about an hour a day playing video games.
Yeah.
But I had Atari and a
like if somebody's gonna play video games, I'm gonna be playing.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna watch somebody.
I don't get it. But hey, that's this generation's thing. It's not like he's the only kid doing that. So I think with him, and it'll come as he gets a little older too, and getting out there and having an adventure. I think that's a problem with the generation too today. Like, I talked to my students about this on a Saturday. That was the only day we had cartoons when I was growing up, was Saturday. And then you had the Flintstones at lunchtime, and what the heck was it? There was something on first thing in the morning before school. Anyways, Saturday, my parents, Ukrainian and German, British parents, so they'd have friends over on Friday and have a few beverages. So who knows what happened after those beverages. And I went to bed. It was like I'd wake up the next morning because I knew mom and dad had some fun the night before.
Yeah, they're sleepy.
Yeah, made my own breakfast from the time I was probably 7, 8 years old, right? Watched cartoons, and then they were getting up and I would be outside. It was wintertime, time to go play hockey. Summertime, I'm off playing tennis, or I grab my bike. Like from 8, you'd be gone.
Yeah.
And you came home, in the wintertime, the rule was you came home by the time the street lights came on, right?
Yeah.
And then in the 80s, you had a bunch of kids get Tanya Morell. I remember that case where she got taken, and that changed things big time. But, you know, I talked to my students about, like, we went outside and we played back in the 80s and the 70s. And nowadays, the idea of playing, and maybe parents are too scared about something bad happening to their kids because of all the stuff we see on the media. And maybe they're a little more sheltering, and having their kid in eyesight is safer. I don't know if that's correct, but, you know, being out and having an adventure, right? Having a imagination instead of your imagination being through a little screen. Totally. So I know we're working on him with that to be, excuse me, to be more active and pursuing his own kind of life.
Just gotta get him out of his comfort zone, get him in a situation where his phone's not there, and he has to make a whole bunch of new friends real quick.
And he does a great job when that phone gets put away. Tim with FitSet, with the FitSet, the Ninja Warrior obstacle course, like, loved doing that. It was great for him to do. Even the other day, I mean, it wasn't overly active, but have you watched Bohemian Rhapsody yet?
Yeah.
So I've watched it 5 times probably by now. It's one of the best movies I've seen. And our kids have both been into kind of eclectic music. Our daughter's definitely the hip hop and that kind of stuff, and I've never really had a care for it. Maybe older school stuff back in the 80s was different than what it is like today. But they've both been interested into Nirvana and, you know, whole wide range of music. And our son was you know, not really into Queen, but he knew songs when he would hear it on the radio. My wife and I always have music playing in the house, or music on the radio in the car, and he wanted to watch it with me. So we sat down and he put his phone away and mesmerized by the show, right? Asking lots of questions. Our kids, we've always been, you know, very open with the LGBTQ community, supportive of the LGBTQ community, and our kids have been raised in that kind of an environment. So, you know, had lots of questions and couldn't believe that, you know, that those kinds of problems happened and still happen, but happened more often back in the 1970s and 1980s, you know, towards somebody that was a little bit different. So, you know, the one thing my son definitely has going for him that I love is his sense of compassion.
Yeah.
Which might be a problem with him when he becomes a police, not to say police officers aren't compassionate, but, you know, seeing some of the things that I know police officers and first responders see, you know, might be a tough time with him.
Totally. Well, a lot of the people in, like, first response roles are so compassionate, and that's why they choose them. They're in it because they have a big heart and they want to keep people safe.
Yeah.
And that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
One of my best friends, Brad Symes, used to play for the Oilers, and then he went in to become a first responder, a firefighter. Some of the stories he used to tell me about things that he had seen, and he was a dad, and back in, how many years has it been? 5 years, I think. Before that, there was very little mental wellness or mental health and therapies and things offered for people who were first responders. You didn't talk about your feelings. You didn't talk about what you saw that day because you compartmentalized it, and you had to be back then it was still largely, you know, male men in the firefighter industry. So you had to be the big strong man back then and didn't want to be seen as weak, and that builds on you. He committed suicide 5 years ago. And he was very, like, one of the most genuine, sensitive, nice guys I've ever known. And I met with him 2 days before, and, you know, still, you know, just that more caring about you and what was going on in your life, not dealing with his own demons and his own issues. Right?
And it's so true, and I have a great deal of respect for the different types of group fitness.
Yeah.
Particularly with my experience with CrossFit Forged by Fire, where I used to spend time. It's a huge base of firefighters out of that gym.
Yeah.
And they have each other's back mentally.
That's right.
And you need that. And that's why if anybody's well, like, you don't need no CrossFit, I'm like,
yeah,
some people need it, and I will respect that, and I will stand by it, and I don't even care what exercise they're doing, because I know how important that is for people's mental health, kind of thing. And that's
sense of belonging, right? And sense of community. Like, I know for me, I've injured myself a lot over the last year, so I've taken not taken time off fitness, but just the way that I treat my body and the way I do fitness. No shameless plug for Peloton, but I've been using their app. I don't have a Peloton bike yet. They're still so damn expensive, but just have my regular bike in the basement. But then they have workouts that you can do, little 20-minute workouts that are, high intensity, solid workouts. And for me, it's fine because, I've always liked going to the gym. I've gone to the gym since I was in grade 9. So what is that, 30-ish? Yeah, about 30 years. And I do like the community of going to the gym, and I still like going for a community, like a class, for a spin class. But I've always had, been able to be self-motivating, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I can get a good workout in my basement. I can get a good workout on my own bike. When I go to the gym, I don't want to go with all my friends to the gym because I want to get in and out in an hour. And I don't want to have an hour where we're talking about what we did last weekend and the same stories over and over again. I want to get in and I want to get out. But I know for a lot of other people, they need to have that sense of belonging, right? Which is why CrossFit is, for all the haters of CrossFit and, all its injuries and this and that, if you get a good studio, it's not going to be like that. But it's for that sense of community and engaging and making everybody feel better about themselves and bringing people up instead of the competitiveness where it's like, I did I'm not a CrossFitter, but I did this number, whatever it's called, the what is it called? What was the most recent one that was what do they call them?
They're by the year
or whatever it is.
19.1.
Right, there you go.
Yeah.
So I did that in so many reps or so many sets of it in that amount of time.
Yeah.
Right? It's more about like encouraging the person to get through it. The best one, I was at CrossFit Armory doing a photo shoot, and they were going through one, and the slowest person that was there, the whole group was around them, not like, pushing them like, suck it up,
like
that kind of
them
thing.
So they
like,
finish.
Yep, you can do it, push through, work strong, right? That support and that community that's so important for a lot of people. Because, let's face it, for a lot of people, fitness is still pretty exclusive.
Yeah.
Or at least they feel that it's exclusive because they don't have the right body type, or...
It can be very daunting because of the shit we talk about in our own head.
Yeah.
And if there are many different facilities in which a person can eliminate the shit that they're saying in their own in their own head, then I am supportive. Yeah. Because, just like a firefighter might have their CrossFit facility, there's a person like me that is strangely attached to spin facilities.
Yeah.
That's just my thing. Like, mentally, that's where I find most clarity. That's where I've met some of my most supportive friends. And that's it for me. And then so I see somebody that sees bar as their thing, and then I see somebody that sees powerlifting as their thing, and I'm just like, I don't care what it is. I want you to be happy, and I want you to be able to do this as long as possible.
Yeah.
And that's where I find the perspective to be as open-minded as possible about fitness. As long as they can still do it next year and 3 years from now, perfect.
Yeah.
And then with personal training, I think it's great. You find your trainer that jives with you in a way that you feel that you're progressing, and that every hour that you spend with them is revitalizing, like in a sense that you enjoyed what you did and you feel better about yourself, not that you had to do something you didn't want to do and you feel like you're not getting anywhere. And different clients are going to match with different trainers, and it's the act of, they say that the training industry, that the fitness industry, that everything is so just overwhelmingly saturated.
Yeah.
And if you look down in this region, it might not seem like there's a lot of gyms, but there's about 6 or 7 within 5 minutes of my house, which is wild. Because then you go to the grocery store and there are people that they have a hard time. They're going to do one trip to their food and then go to their car, which is parked as close as possible, because activity is just not a big part of their life.
Yeah.
and it results in high blood pressure. Like we're not winning with fitness yet, despite all of this stuff. So it's if you can nurture the business and if you can nurture the idea of sustainability, then don't kibosh anything.
And you got to wonder what it is, because I mean, you compare it to the 70s when there was no, I mean, 70s, 80s, and you had Jane, what's her name? Jane Fonda workouts.
There we go. Yeah.
Though, you know, that was the highlight of fitness, right? So you'd watch Arnold down on Venice Beach or whatever, and you just had those two avenues for fitness. You had the people who were the bodybuilders, and then you had the people who did the aerobics. And it seems like today there's more focus on fitness and more focus on wellness. And I think, you know, statistically, we're not doing much better health-wise, right? Whether we're talking high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes.
Yeah, like we don't
wellness.
we don't rank very high as active cities.
Yeah.
Calgary ranks much higher than us, because I did the research, because I knew there was a point this year where I knew I was going to chirp it, so I did my research.
Yeah.
Bonnyville ranks up pretty high.
Yeah.
And they're just inactive. That's just their culture. And it's just a matter of, it's basically people think that they're already the best.
Yeah.
And you can't think that way as a business owner, as a member of a career or just profession.
Yeah.
You always have to be improving.
That's right. And it goes beyond just the, you know, typical 19, 20, 21-year-old self. For myself was the aesthetic, right? I worked out to have big arms and like look good.
Yeah.
And as you get older, and probably should have had this, you know, instilled in me from a younger age, you know, being, for my frame, being 200 and I think my max was 208, worst time of my life. I hated my life. Didn't hate my life, but just hated like going to the gym twice a day and eating chicken and broccoli and rice, right? That's all you ever ate.
Yeah.
And now it's more about, okay, I don't care about like the size of my arms, or, you know, if I don't have big legs, skinny legs, right? So I'm not worried about that anymore. I don't need to deadlift 325 pounds. I need to do something that's going to allow me to go into, I'm closer to old age than I am to young age at this point at 45, but it's going to allow me to continue to be active when I'm older.
Yeah.
Right? And doing some of those kinds of things that I was doing when I was younger were not conducive, again, to my body frame, you know, just were not conducive to doing some of those types of movements and doing them as often as I was, right? Shoulder injuries from, you know, doing too much bench press, elbow injuries from doing, I don't know, you're the personal trainer, but I mean, doing tricep push downs. What kind of functional movement, you know, really is a tricep push down other than to make you get nice sized triceps, right? It serves no function, but I loved them because it gave me nice arms, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, for me this year, like I said, it's been more about focusing on health and wellness, doing a variety of different activities, not worrying about whether I'm still bench pressing like 2 45-pound plates on each side. Like that's not what I'm focused on anymore. And I mean, and it's important too that that's going to be different for different people.
Yeah.
Right. So for me at 45, somebody else who's at 45, that might be a goal for them to still be able to get to whatever, a power lift or deadlift this amount of weight, and hey, all the best to you, right?
And it's so important, like the important message to take away is truly that people, if I aspire to be like you, I am never going to be totally happy. I should aspire to be like me.
Yeah.
But then a better version of me, and another better version of me, and just completely, continually striving for reinvention. A lot of the people that I know reinvent themselves, and it could be from an external factor. It could be from something happened at work, and they were just like, how do I get over this failure?
Yeah.
How do I reinvent myself? And then it happens, and then it's like, holy crap, I never knew I could do that. And then it becomes, for myself, I'm on the constant pursuit of personal growth. So I've reinvented myself in a big way many times, and sometimes in a micro way and sometimes in a macro way, but it's addictive.
Yeah.
And I think if a person hones in on who they are, what makes them unique, and what gives them an edge, and they just focus on that, don't really worry about, like, At Cycle Bar, they have a leaderboard. The less you worry about the leaderboard, the better you're going to get.
Yeah.
Like, if you're continually framing who you are based off of how somebody else felt that day,
yeah,
you're really pushing yourself down.
Yeah.
If you frame who you are based on how you feel that day, you got a lot more potential. Because maybe you feel way, way more badass than anybody else in the room. And you're not going to know what that looks like if you're thinking about where they're at, kind of thing.
But at the same time, I have, and maybe that's just me, when I'm sitting next to Jesse Capina,
yeah,
and we're at Cycle Bar,
yeah,
and Jesse's got that physique. I'm still trying. That's a competitive thing, right? I say I'm not interested in that anymore, but I'm sitting next to Jesse and he's going, and we're on the leaderboard, and Jesse's 2 ahead of me. Oh fuck, I'm gonna beat Jesse today, right?
Man, if
I've
I
still
ever
got
get
that competitive nature, but
if I ever get in the spin room with him or Jordy or Vance or anybody, I'll light them up. Like, that's when my competitive edge will come into play. But I only know that I can do that because I have this like belief in myself and what I can do.
That's a good point. Yeah.
A lot of people talk shit to themselves. Yeah. They go into it.
I do that. I do that a lot to myself too, for sure.
A person might go into it and they're like, oh, every time this person has beat me, every time, and that's what they say. They're going to lose.
Yeah.
But if you say, like, every time I come across an obstacle, I conquer, you're probably more likely to succeed.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't.
I think, like, when I hit 40, I started to get rid of that, give a shit mentality about what other people think. I've still got that competitive thing, and I probably talk myself down with a lot of things. You can't do this, or, you're not good enough to do that. But I know, like, that, having that not give a shit mentality is huge. That's something that my 30-year-old self, I wish I had when I was, when I was younger.
Yeah. Well, that's something I have to, like, reinstill in myself daily.
Yeah.
To not get so, like, overworked. And it's like, it's a skill that I honed as, like, an account manager for YEG Fitness. You're selling advertising in a print magazine to a lot of people that are hustling to make their business work.
Yeah.
And for me now, being the person hustling to make his business work, like, if somebody reached out to me, asked if I could do print advertising, like, I get it. I understand why it was so tough to reach out to people.
Yeah.
But it's something where you have to build such resiliency.
You do, yeah, for sure.
And trust, I think, is the biggest point.
Trust is absolutely
something that I prided myself in. Was I was willing to invest in that relationship with the people, and that's kind of what has sort of built up my reputation in the industry, was because I already had all these relationships, and then they just kind of watched me evolve. Will literally go to evolve, but turn into something different in the industry, just year by year by year.
Yeah.
And it's just that the relationships were real. It was like, okay, you can't advertise, but like, what would it look like if we worked together? Like, what can we do?
There's plenty of opportunities.
Absolutely.
There's lots of opportunities to do collaborations and engage and create a community that doesn't always, have to focus around a financial thing.
Because even if it's like small scale, there's so much that can be done. Like, trainers that are in the middle of their certification right now, some of the most valuable things that they can do is work with YEG Fitness. Like, practice making your article, because when you get into the industry, you better be really good at making articles.
Yeah.
Because if you want clients,
we had this conversation with I approached Nate just maybe 3 years ago, about how important that is. Like, when you come out of Nate or whatever school you go to get your personal training, you got to sell yourself. Like, you should be taking some marketing classes. You should be learning to design a website. I mean, a lot of that stuff nowadays is so easy. Not easy, but it's much easier. Much easier, right? I remember the old days of, like, Dreamweaver and having to do code and things. That's our first website for YEG Fitness, was all coded using Dreamweaver, and it looks like shit in hindsight compared to what it is today. And today it's it's so easy. My son can design a website at 12, and it's a piece of cake. But the part about writing articles, you have to put yourself out there and show people that you know your shit, you know what you're talking about, and you're gonna get that through exposure by writing. So we've had 8 students writing for the last, I think it's been, I want to say 2 years, might be a little longer.
Yeah,
Every
at least
semester.
2, because I've been able to pick out a few of them.
Yeah, every semester they give us a schwack of articles, and and some of them people are not natural writers, and that's fine, right? You have somebody, they send it in to us, and I can tell right away. It's like, okay, this person needs to work on their grammar, needs to work on their ability to tell a story, but that's where an editor is going to come in, and the more practice you get at it too. You're pitching yourself at the same time, right? You're creating some exposure for yourself. So
just imagine how much further behind they would be if they hadn't done that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what I see it as, there's plenty of things that I've written out for myself, either I thought maybe I'd put it out on my website, and then I didn't. But then I realized how much I learned from that.
Yeah.
So even if somebody is just trying to create material that they deem valuable to their client, because you don't write this stuff to impress other trainers. The other trainers don't care.
No.
You're asking your client, what do you want to know more about, and then you compose the info based on that.
Yeah.
I've learned so much in putting these things together, because I want to check my facts. I want it to be science-based. I'm not going to just look on YouTube or do a Google search.
Yeah.
It needs to be from somebody that I trust.
Yeah.
Dean Somerset is a great resource that we have in Edmonton.
Yeah.
Great guy, he's been on the podcast, but there's so many resources that are available, and it's just about kind of taking the opportunities that you have, because I see a lot of frustrated people, and I'll admit I have my frustrated days, but there's a lot of opportunity, and I have to say I've been very grateful to YEG Fitness for the opportunities that it provided me, because it kind of set me up with a good foundation to grow in the industry, because I'm still kind of new.
Yeah.
As much as I've been very, very involved for 2 or 3 years, still pretty new.
Yeah.
And I think I learned a lot of lessons as an account manager and as just someone who just went to things and did the stuff.
And saw some.
Yeah, you talk to people about how their business ran, and you ask the questions, and you talk to other trainers and you ask the questions. You want to do something, you find somebody that's doing it, and you ask how they did it.
Yeah.
That's I think been very beneficial.
Yeah.
So I have one last question. It's something that I ask all of my guests.
Okay.
You're probably prepared. If you could give one piece of advice to how to authentically live your life to the fullest, what would that piece of advice be?
Yeah. Just be yourself and stick true to yourself.
I like it.
It's pretty simple, and it sounds simple, I should say, but people come to you, or people are drawn to you because of the person that you are, right? So why change who you are?
Yeah.
It's a lot fucking harder to put on a mask of somebody else and try to keep maintaining that, because that's the mask that people have seen, and people think that you are, right? Rather than just being yourself. And I mean, it might be harder for a 20-year-old kid or a younger kid who's still so motivated by their peers and wanting to fit in and wanting to be cool and accepted. But I tell my own students, it's like high school, I have zero friends from high school. All of my friends were friends that I made after school, and that's because when I was in high school, I was always trying to be somebody else that I wasn't. And then when I got into university, and it was like, hey, this is my life, and this is the authentic me, and if you don't like me, fuck off. Seriously. And I'm the same today. If I meet somebody the first time, and we don't jive, hey, I'm fine with that. If I'm not gonna be your buddy, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Right? 20 years ago, I might have been like, oh, why doesn't so and so like me? The dude hasn't called me back, or we haven't hung out. Didn't have Instagram back then. Maybe today it would be like, I saw they're hanging out with all their friends. Oh my god, they had the unfollowed me, right? But I think being authentic, being yourself, don't change for other people. Don't change to fit in, right? All these different social norms and things that are considered acceptable. I think today has definitely changed in the sense that kids are more open to being authentic and who they are. Talked about LGBTQ community before. When I was in high school, you never would have saw a gay couple walking down the street or walking down the hallways holding hands.
Yep.
I went to school in Spruce Grove. I played hockey. I've talked about before, like our May edition is our Pride edition, and I was that typical hockey boy. I didn't make the jokes, and I didn't poke fun or anything if there was a gay student, but I definitely didn't stand up and didn't say that it wasn't okay to have those conversations to my friends, right? I might have even laughed and joked along, laughed along with it because I wanted to fit in and I didn't want to be the uncool kid or whatever. And I mean, I've talked to people like Kyle Farrell and others who we've had on the cover before, and look back at my life back then that was probably largely influenced by my uncle, who would definitely consider to be homophobic, but that was my cool uncle, right? And didn't want to be, I guess, looked down upon by my cool uncle back then. And I say, looking back in hindsight, I'm embarrassed about the way I was as a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid towards people who were probably struggling with their own identity back then, and I wasn't making it any better, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I didn't like a kid that was gay. It was just, it was not cool to stand up for them, right? Back in the 1980s. So today, in my today version of TJ, going back to 1980, and it's easy to say now, right? But I think it would be a lot more acceptable today. If there was a LGBTQ kid in school, for somebody to stand up and support them. If they saw something, if my son saw somebody making a comment about a kid in their school that was trans, right? It would be more unacceptable for somebody to make fun of a kid that's trans today than it would be for somebody to stand up and support somebody that's trans. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
So I think, today kids are definitely more in tune with being who they are and being different. I don't know, with my generation, you had I guess it was a little after the emo sort of generation, right? Goth and emo, people dressing, strangely or whatever. Whereas in my generation, it was still like you were just a weird kid. If you came to school looking like Kurt Cobain, right? Nirvana style with woolly socks, a little bit of a social outcast.
Yeah.
You gotta make sure I wear the Esprit and I'm wearing the Gap and I've got the cool shoes on and whatever. And nowadays kids, there's still that need to feel included, but I think kids are definitely more in tune with who they are today. And I think there's, a lot more support available to them to be who they are.
It's good. Like, the way I see it, nobody is going to have themselves be a certain way that would be more difficult. Like, if they're going to be themselves, they're going to be whatever comes easiest, and whatever that looks like, I'm good with that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, again, you look back at myself or you look back at other students who poke fun at somebody who was different, and it's like, what does it matter?
Yeah.
Like, they're not affecting you, so they want to wear purple socks and have Hello Kitty ears, and cool. Like, that's them. That's their authentic self. How are you being authentic? We talk about, I don't know, hipster's a bad example, but we talk about people who, I'm my own individual, I'm my own person and this and that, and it's, well, I listen to this music and you have your own little group of people that you've fit into yourself. How's that any different than what that kid is doing? That kid has more balls to be themselves than you do. Yeah. So why are you trying to make their life more difficult?
Absolutely. It's always, when I was compiling my composition of episodes 1 to 37, I had a few quotes and like excerpts that stood out, and it's basically if somebody's going to cut somebody else down, they have a lot of internal problems that
That's
they're dealing
exactly what it was. And like I said, I mean, mine back in the 80s was that whole wanting to fit in, right? Small town, wanted to be one of the cool kids. I mean, hey, I lived in Spruce Grove. There weren't, you didn't notice there weren't a lot of ethnicities in Spruce Grove at the time. There probably were lots of gay kids in Spruce Grove, but they definitely weren't outwardly gay
they were
in
quiet
Spruce
about it.
Grove. Absolutely, right? But back in in hindsight in that day, it's like, again, I wasn't the one out there making the joke, but would laugh along with it just to be part of the group, right? And that was definitely my own self-esteem issues, right?
Yeah.
Wanting to fit in and be one of the cool kids, because I had red hair and glasses and freckles, and I didn't want to stand out by supporting the gay kid, right? And now in hindsight, it's like, as you get older, you're like, I was just being a fucking idiot.
And not all people are going to take lessons from that in that way. Some people are going to be like, well, that's right, so I'm just going to keep on keeping on. So
That's right.
it's good. I think we had a similar experience, so we can kind of relate to that. Like, I grew up in a rural school, similar scenario, a lot of just like, you were this way or you were weird.
Yep.
And if you wanted to kind of survive, you just kind of were like, haha, yeah, that is weird. And whether you agreed with it or not, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just looking back, I think, well, I could have done that a different way. But now that I know that I have that in my like skill set, I can see how I can act differently in the future.
Yeah.
And as long as I can take that as part of one of my skills that I've learned in my life, then good. That's great.
Yeah.
But it's been a great interview.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Talked about all the things, so thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks
We'll
for having
catch
me.
you around.
This was so much fun.
Sweet.